What is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. One of the top asked questions I get is what is the best bang for buck, the highest performance yet reasonable cost gaming monitor for my PC? Well, I always direct people over here, but I have yet to do a review for this bad boy. This is it. This is the official review for the 32-inch 1440 144Hz VSync Viotek monitor. Let's get it. Alrighty guys, over here at the Stormtrooper PC as always. Now, I gotta say, not only does this monitor look cosmetically pretty good, the bezels are relatively small, there is a small black border around the sides here, but when the monitor is off, it looks virtually bezel-less, which is great. Still get 31.5 inches of display angle, which is very, very good, because when you start getting above about 32 inches, price starts increasing substantially. But whenever I go back to like playing on a friend's 27-inch monitor, or something even smaller than that, you definitely do miss those extra inches, ladies. Especially because this is curved. It is not a very aggressive or drastic curve, as it is not an ultra wide. However, that little curve there kind of adds to the immersion when you're playing first-person shooters. I scoop myself in there nice and taut, and it wraps around just ever so slightly, so you actually get a good view of what's going on around you. I, of course, crank up my field of view slider in most games to about the 75% mark. If I had an ultra wide, I would crank it to 100, obviously. But the brightness is very good. And this particular monitor here, I don't think they produce this model anymore. You can still find this exact model, but they actually have a updated version or iteration, a next gen of this one that is retailing for the same price. So I'll have this model, which is still being sold, but it's not being produced, and I'll have the newer generation in the description down there below so you guys can get to that landing page. But the first thing you want to do, because when I did hook up this monitor, it was only at, it was 1440p, but it was at 60 Hertz, and this is a 144 with VSync. So what you want to do is you want to right click anywhere on Windows 10, you want to go to display settings. As you see, I have 3 monitors with my setup currently, but it recognizes number 1 is my primary monitor. You want to click make this your main display, unless this is going to be a secondary, but this is a pretty good secondary. So I just use it as my primary. You want your display at 1440. This can go up to 3620 by 2036, but the native resolution on this is 1440, and that's what you want. And then you also want to go to advanced display settings right here, guys, and you want to select display adapter properties for display 1, and click on the monitor tab right here. Screen refresh rate, guys, 144 Hertz. By default, it was at, what the fuck was that? By default, it was at 60. And why pay for a 144 Hertz monitor if you're not going to utilize it, right? So choose 144 Hertz and hit apply, and you are good to go. It'll now show you your refresh rate is 144 Hertz. SDR, there is no HDR on this monitor. However, I will say the colors are actually quite vibrant. They pop pretty good. Blacks are pretty dark for being standard dynamic range. I never have any real complaints. Nothing looks whitewashed. No colors look artificially saturated or anything like that. And of course, you do have control over it. I do wish it came with a remote control. Instead of having to use these buttons down here, they are labeled M for mode, an up and down arrow, E, and then a power button, obviously, to turn the monitor off. As for ports on the back, you have an HDMI port, a display port, and then a traditional VGA screw-in port that people have been using since the Civil War. There is no built-in speakers on this monitor, not that you would be using that anyway. At least I would highly advise using built-in TV or monitor speakers. You want to be using either a headset or some kind of external speakers, preferably probably a headset for better situational awareness and whatnot. This does have LED lights on the back. They're not very bright, and they only are red. And they're not bright enough to where it cascades like a nice, cool red backlight on your wall or anything like that. They're just a very dim light that turns on. You can't even really tell they're on. So I actually turn that off in the settings. So as you see, you have your DP, HDMI, and DVI port here. You do have controls for your brightness and your contrast, of course. You have plenty of color settings here from gamma, picture mode. I keep it in game. It's always going to be at that 144 Hertz, but with the game mode, it seems to be a little bit more fluid and smooth. And then color temperature, you can choose either cool or warm. I wish they had an option for neutral that puts it right dead center in the spectrum, but they do not have that. Picture quality settings, you have bypass, sharpness, response time, noise reduction, super resolution, dynamic luminous control, and FreeSync. I would leave all of those artificial pumped in software enhancements off because it's not giving you that native image that you're getting from the game or content you're watching. But I would indeed turn on FreeSync, which is this company, Viotek's version of VSync. And it is recognized as a VSync monitor in games, so you can select VSync and it'll coordinate so you don't get any screen tearing or image pop-in or anything like that. If you do want to turn off that LED light in the back, you come here to display and go to LED mode, off. As you see, you do have an audio tab here where you can select the volume. Now, what that is talking about is the 3.5mm headphone jack on the back. Like I said, there is no onboard speakers here. You do have settings for multi-window. However, if you're using multiple monitors, you'll just do those controls inside of Windows 10. As you see here, I'm on a triple monitor setup. So settings, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You shouldn't need to do a lot of setup in the actual options besides making sure that your FreeSync is on and that you have the brightness set correctly for your room and your viewing style. Do you like a really bright display, or do you have sensitive eyes? Maybe you want something a little dimmer. So other than that, you shouldn't really need to do a whole lot of settings. And I've got to say, I play a lot of first-person shooters, so obviously a high frame rate is critical. That's absolutely critical to get that fluid, smooth motion. This thing never disappoints. I never get motion blur or anything crazy like that, any screen tearing. And honestly, Viotek makes some really good monitors for an incredibly reasonable price. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I highly wish I was. Viotek, if you're watching. So this is the newer version of this monitor right here. You can pick it up for $280 with free shipping. It's not on Prime, so you'll probably have to wait probably 7 days or so for it to be delivered. It has a 4.5 out of 5 stars from 4,308 reviews. If you want to go a little bit more budget, they do have smaller monitors starting at about 27 inches. And if you are a big baller, they have this behemoth here for $730, which oh God. Oh boy. So in conclusion, guys, when you are shopping for a monitor, even if you decide not to go with this model, which I do think you will regret as it is a very good bang for buck, I honestly do think that 1440, 144 hertz is the sweet spot there. The jump in frame rate from 30 to 60, if you're like upgrading a console, is huge. When you go from 60 to 120, that is incredibly noticeable as well. Then you get to 144 and you're like, this is also quite fluid, but it's not dramatic from 120 to 144. But then anything over 144, you start getting into the realm where it's really not as noticeable to the human eye. Yes, it is quicker on paper, for sure. And I'm not saying those 300 hertz monitors aren't cool and whatnot. They're cool for marketing. For somebody that has a background in business, I think they're marketing them fantastic. But in reality, from a gamer standpoint, from what you see and what you pay for, 144 hertz is the best value. Same thing with 1440. 4K, you need a crazy PC to push. And if you put on something like ray tracing or HDR, it's even more strenuous. As where 1440 is a lot less resource intensive, but it also looks noticeably better than 1080p. So like 1440, 144 hertz, in my opinion and the opinion of a lot of, all say the same thing. And in my experience, it has been true. 1440, 144 hertz, that is the sweet spot for a gaming monitor, at least here in 21. That is going to do it, guys. Again, this bad boy is linked in the description below. Hope you guys have a great night. Like the video if you enjoyed it. It helps it to get seen by more people. Ticks off the algorithm a little bit. Subscribe for more peripheral reviews like this. Tallywhack that notification bell so you're alerted when new videos come online. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.